Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. On today's show, we have so many DCU updates for you, and one update from DC Elseworlds in terms of Constantine 2. So let's get on with it. But today's main headline is that James Gunn has given an update on his Superman movie, Superman Legacy. I'm very excited about this update, so let's get into it. I really love the idea of Superman. He's a big old galoot. He's a farm boy from Kansas who's very idealistic. His greatest weakness is that he'll never kill anybody. He doesn't want to hurt a living soul. I like that sort of innate goodness about Superman. It's his defining characteristic. He's not All-Star Superman, but again, I'm a huge fan of All-Star Superman, and I'm very inspired by that series. So what can we make from this? So he's setting his stall out from day one to tell you what kind of Superman he's adapting here. He's not adapting All-Star Superman, although he's teased it on social media on multiple occasions, but he really likes those series of comics, as do I. So he's going to take inspiration from All-Star Superman. There's no question about that. But basically, he says Superman's no-kill policy is basically his main characteristic. So obviously, Superman isn't going to kill in this film and in James Gunn's and Peter Safran's DC universe. So that's very important. Let's repeat what he said. So he goes, it's his defining characteristic. He doesn't want to hurt a living soul. I like that sort of innate goodness about Superman. So this is what Superman Legacy actually means. That they're setting out their stall for Superman's legacy, which will be that he's good. He's got this innate goodness, as James has just said. Also, that his defining characteristic is his no-kill policy. So I think he's really trying to make it clear what he's doing here. So I think what he's trying to say to the people who didn't like Snyder's take on Superman, who didn't like Man of Steel and BVS and how they did Superman in those films, to say, come on back, we're going to give you a true blue Man of Steel. And this is innately important because when Man of Steel was being marketed, you had David Goyer saying, oh, I'm not having kryptonite in Man of Steel. It's stupid for a hero to have a weakness that's a green rock. You know, and I think that's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard, by the way, David Goyer. I actually think kryptonite is a great weakness for a character. And it actually makes scientific sense. And Snyder introduced it in BVS, by the way, when WB booted Goyer out. If you notice, Nolan's production company that produced Man of Steel didn't produce Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. And you know, Goyer was saying shit like, oh, in Superman the movie, they're all cheering him and clapping him straight off. That's so unrealistic. Yes, he's an unrealistic fantasy character, David. So I think these were the issues that really gave Man of Steel problems from the beginning. A great movie that I adore. I was only watching it the other day, by the way. But it was this effort to bring Superman in the real world. And, you know, he said the only way you can make Superman relatable is basically having an alien invasion first contact story, which was a great idea by Goyer, by the way. But ultimately, I don't think Goyer actually really understood Superman at all. This is not Batman. You know, you've got to keep the inherent things that people love about Superman. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. And if you don't like Superman for what he's been since 1938, maybe you should go and create your own superhero or adapt a superhero that basically breaks people's necks and kills people willy-nilly. And that's okay. I love characters like that. I love anti-heroes. But Superman isn't an anti-hero. So James Gunn really setting his stall out from the beginning, and I really, really like that. I think this is brilliant by James Gunn. He's being very direct and honest about what he's doing. He's still writing this script, so there's no casting process right now. And basically, Superman Legacy is the only DCU project with an actual release date. And there are people with conspiracy theories out there saying maybe Gunn's just there to make WB look more profitable and more valuable when Zaslav and Discovery attempt to sell it in 2024. From 2024, they can start trying to sell it if they want. You can't sell a company after you've just bought it for the first year or so, or 2 years, or whatever it is. So there is that conspiracy theory. Now, if you want to put credence into that conspiracy theory, it's true, there's only one film with a release date right now, and by the time Superman Legacy is released, potentially, Warner Brothers Discovery could be sold off, and I really don't want that to happen. So I hope these conspiracy theories don't come true, but Superman Legacy seems to be the only film with a release date, and we'll wait and see what happens. This really is the early in development stages of DCU. So what have we got in the next few years? We've got 4 DC movies this year. We'll get into some updates on them very, very shortly as well. And next year we've got the Joker, we've got the Penguin series, we've got James's probably animated series, we've got Amanda Waller. We've got a lot of stuff next year. And then 2025 is Superman Legacy and the Batman at the very least. So in the next few years, we do have some good stuff to look forward to. It's not like we're going to be bereft and, starved of great DC content. So as a DC fan, I'm very excited about that. And I don't want Warner Brothers to be sold. I think it's a proud 100-year-old mammoth of a studio. It's been around since the invention and, inception of Hollywood, so it's very, very important it remains independent, because Warner Brothers means a lot to me. It's meant a lot to me through my childhood. That logo, that WB logo, what the original Warner Brothers created, means a lot to me. And I will fight tooth and nail through my platforms to make sure that it remains an independent company. So fingers crossed it remains so. But James Gunn basically saying that Superman in Superman Legacy, they're going to set this legacy out like he is in the comic books, and they're not going to try and redefine him. Because basically, Gunn and Safran and Zaslav are smart enough to understand what people didn't like about the Snyderverse, and they're not looking to retread that situation. Rachel Zegler has given us an update on her character in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and this is what she's had to say. Rachel Zegler on her character in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. She's the runt. She's the little baby. So she has always kind of gone with what her sisters say. So that's confirmation that she's in fact playing the sister of Lucy Liu and Dame Helen Mirren. What an honour, right? She tries to navigate how to express her feelings to the Shazam family, who she kind of becomes acquainted with. So this is very obvious what Rachel's character story is, that she's not actually evil, but she's just going along with their plan for revenge and to take their power back from the Shazam family. Now, ultimately, what happens to this character in the end, I have no idea. I did have the theory that this could become a ward for Wonder Woman and Diana, someone that maybe she can train up herself. And I think there is a comic book character of a similar vein whose name escapes me. And I kind of always had the feeling they were going to go along these lines. Now, maybe if that's the lines they were going to go in, maybe Safran and Gunn have given them notes to cut that bit out. So listen, she sounds like an interesting character and one to look out for. And I think there is a love story between her and Freddie Freeman. That's what I've been told by my sources anyway. So yeah, I think she'll be a really, really interesting and fun character. But important to note, she's not actually evil in this movie. Sticking with Shazam! Fury of the Gods, star Grace Caroline Curry has addressed fans' potential loss of interest in the sequel amid uncertainty about Shazam's DCU future. Give it a shot, she says. It's genuinely good and genuinely fun. So Yeah, I mean, it is a little debate that we've had on this channel on my lives before, isn't it? Is it worth going to watch comic book movies that may not have a future in terms of a franchise? Well, I'm a very old-fashioned 50-year-old man, and I grew up, and human beings that I grew up with and adults used to go to movies just to enjoy the experience of that movie. So if you enjoyed the first Shazam film, then it is worth your while to go to see it because it continues that saga of Billy Batson and Shazam and Freddie Freeman and the Shazam family. So if you enjoyed that first film, there absolutely is a point to go and support this movie. I'm going to go and support this movie. I'm very excited to see this movie. Why wouldn't I? The first film was brilliant. David F. Sandberg did a great job. And James Gunn has already said there's potential for all the four leads of this year's movies to be involved in the future of DCU. So if you want to go and see it, go and see it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to say if you don't want to go and see it, you're wrong. If you don't want to go and see it, do what you effing well want, right? But what I'm saying is, I think it's a bit of a stupid reason to say, well, it doesn't lead into anything. What's the point of watching it? It does. It's the continuation from the first movie. And you're going to get lots of the Wizard Shazam screen time with Shazam, with Billy Batson. Those scenes apparently are a lot of fun. Personally, I think it's going to be a better movie than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania as a movie. Yeah, Kang's brilliant in that film, but I think as a proper, fully fleshed out movie and story, I've already compared this movie to Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. There is a big sacrifice coming for Billy Batson and Shazam. It really is his story. And it's a deep take at what he's going through, his responsibilities towards the Shazam family, and how it's all weighing down on him. So I would definitely tell you, go and see it, and you won't be disappointed if you do. And I have an update for people who are interested in the Constantine sequel starring Keanu Reeves. So let's take a listen to what the writer of the movie has to say. The new film expands on the themes the original brought about, maintaining the barrier between Earth and the evil creatures that are on the other side. The writer gave all credit to Keanu Reeves for making the film actually happen. This is a credit to Keanu Reeves, who endlessly has said this is the character I want to return to. Finally, he said it enough times that it stuck. So I'm coming out of the gate fast. We're doing it with J.J. Abrams and Francis, and Keanu and I have been pretty deep in the story breaking stage. Now, this is very interesting because he said they're doing this with J.J. Abrams as well. Now, part of J.J.'s deal was that he would have complete control of the kind of Justice League Dark universe and the Constantine universe. So now he did develop some shows. He was doing Zatanna, he was doing his own Constantine. So this is very, very interesting where this film could go. Could it introduce the new Black Constantine that he was doing? Or is all these stuff that he was doing for streaming now been cancelled? I think that DC stuff that JJ was doing has actually gone. So I don't know. So if JJ is actually involved in this, and I don't think he's, I think the guy called Francis is directing this film. So JJ isn't, actually directing this film. I don't know if he'll be a co-writer of the story, but I'm quite surprised by his involvement. But could it be that the franchise that JJ will now be in charge of in terms of Justice League Dark? Now, don't forget, they're doing a Swamp Thing movie for the DCU. Now, will J.J. Abrams have a hand in that one, or is that separate to what they're doing here? This looks like basically an Elseworlds film, so a very interesting update. They go on to say, so basically, with the film so early in development, the team is still discovering what the movie will look like. The character is very much Keanu in the way he and Francis Lawrence saw the world of good and evil, and the wonderful and authentic noir where there is a world behind the world of good and evil coexist, with our world right up close. Beyond that, we are still discovering it as I am writing the script. So basically, for those who have been saying this film isn't happening, Constantine 2 is very much in development. Let me repeat to the eggheads at the back spreading false propaganda. Yeah, you know, the minority of toxic Snyder fans trying to spread shit. Basically, Constantine 2 is actually happening, and they're deep in the development stage, and this is all due to Keanu Reeves. Why wouldn't you want a DC Elseworld movie starring Keanu Reeves? The DC Elseworld has got a film with Joaquin Phoenix, Lady Gaga, now Keanu Reeves. I tell you what, DC is going places, everyone. And you know, if you compare it to the future of the MCU, I'd rather be a DC fan right now. Now, former DC animator Jay Oliver, who has been very vocal in support for Zack Snyder and the Snyderverse because he did work on Batman vs Superman and the Snyder Cut, has weighed in on the topic of selling Snyderverse to Netflix. This is what he had to say. Good luck with that, but I highly doubt it because WB will not want a competing universe studio to their main one. Plus, the licensing fees involved would be too high to make any business sense, unless they were buying the characters like Sony did to Spidey. And we all know that WB has plans for these characters, so they aren't going to take a deal like that. Marvel sold Spidey during a time of bankruptcy. WB isn't there, and I doubt they would do such a deal in today's climate. Right, so we've got to now. What I would say is, right, first of all, this is not just about this being realistic or unrealistic. The people who have formed this new kind of campaign, which I love because it's so pure and positive to sell Snyderverse to Netflix, have done it to wrestle away basically the movement from this vocal, toxic minority who are making the rest of the Snyder fans look bad. That is one of the elements. Yes, this is a very unrealistic thing, but it's about more than that. The Snyderverse fans and stans aren't going away. Isn't it better that they put their efforts and oxygen into something positive and wholesome, even if it doesn't happen? By the way, Netflix have not even commented on this, and this has been going for a couple of months. This started 2 or 3 months ago as they were building up to this event they did the other day on the, was it the 14th of this month? And it nearly got, you know, they were trending by 200k tweets. That's a sensational effort. But I repeat, now Jay is obviously involved in the industry, but he ain't God. And he don't know everything, and he's not the decision maker. He's just giving an opinion. Now, what he's saying about the licensing being too high is right. It's very, very expensive. But I do believe that Zaslav would look at this and say, do you know what? Why not? Because let's look at this. Now, Jay Oliver talks about they wouldn't want a competing faction doing DC. DC wouldn't be competing against each other. Matt Reeves, the Batman, and the Batman franchise isn't competing against James Gunn's The Brave and the Bold movie, right? No. It's just an Elseworld. They're just in different universes, and that's okay. You know, Smallville wasn't competing against Superman Returns when it was released, right? They're on the same team. We're all on the same team. And to sell Snyderverse, now you're not really selling anything, but letting Snyderverse basically be made by Netflix and Zack Snyder isn't a competing faction. It's another version of these characters, and if you're allowing another Batman in the Elseworld, you know, if you're allowing other versions of characters in the Elseworld, if you're going to have a Joker in James Gunn's Batman universe, but you've got Joaquin Phoenix Joker, isn't that a competing faction? Well, no, it's not. None of it's competing. It just brings more doorsteps to your bread. It basically gives you more variety, and it gives you something for everyone. So, yes, Jay's right about the licensing fees, but I still feel that with the amount of people who would go onto Netflix to actually watch this, and obviously, look, it will be a very expensive undertaking, but is it worth Netflix's while? I think the reason they haven't commented yet, because, I don't know if Zaslav and Netflix are talking about taking some DC properties. So all that HBO Max DC stuff that James Gunn has announced, I believe, and now don't forget, they're actually going to launch a WBTV free streaming service as well, which I've mentioned before. Hopefully that's for the global audience as well. But if it's not, I believe that what Zaslav will do is saying we're going to release it for HBO Max for the American audience and Netflix can have it for the global audience. So there's definitely negotiations going on for other DC stuff and DCU stuff. But I do think there's a deal to be made here if cool heads are sitting around the table. And I think as long as both entities can find a way, I think it's possible. But yes, it is improbable. It is an unrealistic idea. But I definitely think that Snyder's interested in it. And I definitely think that Netflix would have come out straight away and dismissed this. Why haven't Netflix commented on this? Think about that for a moment. So, yeah, I wouldn't be as quick to dismiss this as Jay Oliver has at the end of the day. And, because I think anything's possible in this business. I know this business. I know this business so well. And I communicate with people in the business. It's not as ridiculous as it sounds. Now, let's think about it. How did this campaign even get started? I think someone who talks to Zach basically heard something, and I don't know what they've heard. But I think this campaign started for a reason. And I don't think it's as impossible as people think. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying Netflix are even interested in it happening. According to James Gunn, they haven't said anything about being interested or shown any interest in this campaign. But they haven't publicly come out to say, do you know what? This ain't happening. We'd like it. It will be amazing. But in terms of business, it's not going to happen. They could have stopped this, right? Before, the other day when this campaign, the trending event started, they could have said, please don't do the trending event because you'd be wasting your time. They could have done that, but they've let it happen. So I do think there's a slight possibility that this does come from a place of reality, and it's no. You wouldn't be competing against the DCU. It would lots of people say this, it's because people don't understand. No DC is competing against DC. I mean, some Snyder fans think Matt Reeves and Zack Snyder are competing against each other. And that's just not the way it works. Really, DC are not even competing with Marvel, right? And they're from two separate companies, because you can have a successful MCU and a successful DCU, right? And a successful DC Elseworlds, right? We've had Arrowverse going while we had DC movies. They weren't competing against each other. What's the difference? So yeah, I do disagree with Jay here, and I do think all I can do is applaud the people who are behind this movement and this campaign. And as I say, they are not going anywhere. The Snyder fans are never ever going to let go. And people need to understand this. I always hear people saying, oh, they need to move on, where they're not going to move on. So I'd rather them create a wholesome, uplifting campaign like Sell Snyderverse to Netflix, where they're not attacking people. But let's be clear, they're always going to be throwing shade at DC Universe. Even if this is to happen, they're always going to come out with their shit takes. The other day they said they were trending more than the Flash movie was. And what they do with that is they manipulate the trending situation. They don't explain to you how trends work. There's new trends and there's old trends. So the Flash movie is still trending somewhere, right? But because a bunch of them, right, will keep on hashtagging Sell Snyderverse to Netflix, of course they were going to have about a 200k trend. And sometimes the trends are very unrealistic. Just because something trends, it doesn't make it as popular as it seems. So you've got to understand how the trending system can be manipulated, and basically no one knows how to manipulate the trending situation on Twitter and other social media platforms better than the Snyderverse fans and stans. And you know what? I congratulate them for that. But you know what? I support James Gunn's DC Universe. I support the Elseworld movies. Very excited about Constantine 2, Joker 2, the Batman 2, the Penguin, the Arkham series that they're also developing. There's nothing that DC are doing that I'm not supportive of. So I can support Sell Snyderverse to Netflix. I can support DCU. I can support it all. The only time I have to say anything to these Snyderverse stands is when they start saying shit like accusing James Gunn of being a child abuser or being toxic, or saying the DCU and Jeff Johns is racist. No, Jeff Johns wasn't racist. Jeff Johns is married to an Asian lady. How can he be bloody racist? The situation there with Jeff Johns and Ray Fisher was that he didn't want to represent him as an angry gentleman of colour. Basically, he wanted to represent him in the correct manner. So there's a misunderstanding there. And, Ray Fisher knew that full well. But yes, Jeff Johns kind of allegedly did threaten Ray's career. Because, let's be honest here, Ray wasn't innocent in this, right? Because they're trying to get this film done, and you've got all these actors who are in love with Zack, understandably, causing problems as well for the director. So the director's causing problems for them, they're causing problems for the director. It's a fucking shit show. That's why you don't get rid of Snyder in the first place. Let him finish his fucking arc. That whole thing was a mistake. Yeah, so I just think it's one of the best times in DC's history to be involved with DC. I think it's a very exciting time. On the top of the show, we had an update about Superman Legacy. Superman is my favourite character in fiction. I'm so excited in 2025 we're getting a brand new movie, and actually we're dealing with a Superman that won't kill, who's innately good. Great. Now, I don't think Cavill's Superman is a cruel killer or evil Superman like some people call him, but this is the type of Superman that people want. And James Gunn is basically saying, don't you worry. We have listened to you. We have listened to your complaints about the previous franchise, and we are not about to make the same mistakes again. And that's the point here. And I think, look, they're listening. Look, they're listening to, let's say, the DC purists this time and the general audience. And, James Gunn actually elaborated a lot more in what he's talking about with his DC Universe movies and Superman especially. He said he doesn't want Superman just to be fighting villains that are just innately evil. He wants to be dealing with villains who deal with grey areas as well. So it's not just about good versus evil. It's going to be those villains like, maybe they're not really, really evil, but they're doing questionable things. And then as a viewer and a fan, it makes you ask the question, whose side would I take here? So that's an interesting thing, because if you look at Manchester Black in Superman versus the Elite, which is a great set of graphic novels and a brilliant animated movie, Manchester Black, the leader of the Elite, does deal with grey areas where he believes that villains should be killed, because if you kill them, they can't come back again. So maybe Manchester Black and the Elite could be involved in Superman Legacy, because if you want to kind of talk about Superman's legacy and his no-kill policy, Superman versus the Elite is a brilliant story to bring into live action. It's what I did with my Superman script. I wrote it I didn't pitch it or anything, but I just wrote it for my own satisfaction. And I told the story of Manchester Black basically challenging Superman to start killing villains. And the first villain he wanted him to kill was Clark's good friend, John Corbin, aka Metallo. And we have flashbacks to the Second World War, and the government and the Allies pressuring Superman to kill the Nazis, and Hitler and Superman refusing to do so. So that was my story. And I don't want to be egotistical or vain here. I think in some ways, James Gunn could be going down the same road, because I think this will be a statement about who Superman is. That's why it's called Superman Legacy. I think there will be kind of discussions in the film about Superman's no-kill policy, and I think even maybe that could be challenged. So get ready. I think this is a very, very kind of good adversary to Man of Steel, if you like, where Man of Steel was trying to bring Superman into the real world, and Snyder's saying, get real, man, in the real world, Superman would have to kill, and James Gunn's going, do you know what? He ain't a real life character, he is a fantasy character. Many children and parents look up to him and go to cinemas to watch this character's movies, and we want to inspire people. We want to create a better tomorrow. And the best way to create a better tomorrow and basically put it into the heads of young people that it's good not to kill. You don't want young people going to the cinema and coming out and going, yeah, man, did you see how Superman broke Zod's neck? Wow, I'm going to put that on repeat. It was amazing. You don't want kids being inspired by that. You want kids being inspired the way we were as kids, inspired by Christopher Reeve's Superman. This has been Thursday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. I hope you had a good time with this video today. I certainly had a great time at making it. So until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.